Leeza here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my weekly deck reviews. So this week I am going to be talking about the Mermaid Tarot and the Hedgewitch Botanical Oracle, both of which I worked with all last week. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be working with this upcoming week. So I'm putting this up pretty late on Sunday, which is a little later than normal. I usually put this up Sunday morning. If you are new here, welcome. Subscribe, hang out with me if you like hearing about decks or how I work with decks, tarot and oracle, magic, self-worth, all that good stuff. Hang out and be a part of the supportive tarot family. So with that said, I'm just going to jump right in because I have had a big weekend. So some of you may have seen that my sister Jen from Jen's Balanced Tarot was in town this weekend. So we filmed a video together, which will be coming up later this week. And we filmed a live together and she accompanied me during Self-Worth Saturday. So we just had a really wonderful weekend, but it's also been a very big and busy weekend. So I just really want to share my thoughts with you on these decks and then maybe curl up with a cup of tea and get ready for an early bedtime. But until then, I thought I would share with you where we're at. I don't know if any of that made sense, but come along with me for the journey anyways. So first, let's talk about the beautiful Mermaid Tarot by Leeza Robertson. So first off, I have a few things to tell you about this deck and my experience with this deck. So first of all, the bag that I had Peggy make me for this, I asked her very nicely to make me for this deck. She even used like a leafy stitch up here, but it's all like shells underwater, which is of course perfect for this deck and makes me really, really happy. I found this fabric when we were out fabric shopping, so I just got a small amount and I was like, can you make me for my Mermaid Tarot? And she did, which was amazing. So this is what the backings look like. And I actually edged my deck in 6 different shades of light blues and greens, which give it this really, really cool watery look. And I love how that edging came out. Now, I did have a little bit of an issue with this deck. So when I first got this from, I think I ordered this through Book Depository, I had some damaged cards. Now, I had reached out to Book Depository and didn't hear back, but at least not right away. And Llewellyn, I reached out to their customer care team. They had actually commented on an Instagram post and they said, hey, we will send you replacement cards. So I reached out to them and they sent me replacement cards. And then when I got those in, I was edging this deck, and as I got to different cards, I found that there was even more damaged cards in the deck. It was obviously just a printer snafu. It was nobody's fault. It just was what it was, like a misprint kind of thing. So they've sent me those replacement cards as well. But some of them had like a crease in them. But I have to say the experience with Llewellyn customer service was outstanding. I had a very fast response. They were really quick to offer to send me replacement cards. Those replacement cards came really quickly. I could not be more happy with the experience I had with Llewellyn. That being said, let's talk about the deck itself. The artwork in this deck is so beautiful. It really draws you into this water world, which I really, really appreciate. It was one of the things I was really looking to experience with this deck. Now, when I first got this, I did read the entire guidebook from cover to cover, which is something I try to do with most new decks, at least the first week that I work with them. I will say this guidebook is beautifully produced. You get full color images, lots of content from Leeza Robertson, who wrote this guidebook. The illustrations are by Dillon. Like, look at how, so I think I might be showing you the same ones, but every single card, minor or major or court, has a full page image, which of course makes this full color guidebook smell really good. So if you are a deck sniffer, this is a really yummy smelling book. I think I just drooled a little. That's how much I like this. But I will say that I felt like some of these cards, here's a good example. So this is not normally how I picture a 5 of Wands, which is for me is about competition, rivalry, that sort of thing. Now, the message in the card, in the guidebook, is all about how, you know, you can get further if you work together. So I appreciate that message, but I was missing that image of conflict here. There was a couple of other ones where I had a similar sort of, that's not quite jiving for me. But for the most part, you guys, this deck does such a beautiful job of connecting classical Rider-Waite-Smith interpretations with the artwork of the cards. There is both upright and reverse meanings. Now, can I just say, and you guys know I don't like the boys all that much, but all of the onesie mermen in this book look like Jason Momoa. I don't know what it is, but they're all just really like hunky, and I can even appreciate that, which is saying something. So it is yeah, here's a good example. Here's our King of Wands. Yeah, here's the King of Wands. Like, actually, not sad about it. And that's really funny because it's not something I would normally notice or appreciate all that much, but I really do. Here's another card that takes a slightly different turn. The Two of Swords. Now, when you read the guidebook entry, this starts to make a little bit of sense. It's about internal conflict and things like that, but the sparring image, for me, the Two of Swords is very much about what's happening on the inside, and the image depicts an external situation. Now, the guidebook goes to describe that it does say that this is sparring, and it talks about the sparring figures representing each side of the dilemma, I believe. I could be getting that wrong, but I think that's how the spin that this took. But it's still not my favorite way to depict the Two of Swords. So there was a couple little, like, slightly interesting little takes on things, but for the most part, I'm trying to show you some more images. For the most part, I feel like they did a great job with connecting artwork to the meanings, and I'm pretty sure that all this artwork was created for this deck, and I think it does a great job. I also really appreciate how the suits really do clearly look different. So all the swords feature these sort of more barren, wintry sort of landscapes. The wands, of course, feature these sort of tropical looking volcano-y sort of landscapes, so you get that fire feel even though it's a water deck. Look at this totally represents why am I having a blank? It's because it's been such a busy weekend. You know, the fire lava goddess. I'm so sorry, you guys. My brain just went completely blank. You're gonna immediately all know exactly who I'm talking about. And cups are, of course, featuring more watery landscapes, of course. And pentacles feature, if that can be said, there's the ace. Let me find a better pentacles card to show you what I mean. They definitely show more earthiness. Yeah, like some more vegetation underwater, that sort of thing, to still give you that really earthy vibe. And I also see, like, here's the Knight of Pentacles totally out of the water, or at least mostly out of the water. So you definitely get the feeling of each suit, which I really think could not have been completely easy considering that this is a water world type deck. Some of the symbolism that I look for in a deck did feel like it was kind of lacking in a couple of spots. For example, like the image I just showed of the High Priestess, I don't see anything that represents the two pillars, which is a weird thing, but I like it when there's a nod to those pillars. So there's a couple little, like I said, a couple little things like that. There was another thing here, and I believe it was might have been the Judgment card, which shows mer people helping to clean up an oil spill. So they're helping below the water surface. I'm going to see if I can find the card. While people, humans, are helping above the water surface. I'm not going to be able to find it, of course. I'm never prepared for these, and you guys must be like totally rolling your eyes. Not offended if you hit fast forward to like figure out where it is. Yeah, totally not going to be able to find it. Isn't that just the way? So that's an example of a card. I can find it. That's an example of a card where, yeah, here it is. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's the Death card that does that. The Death card. So we see this oil spill. And for me, I want death to show release, to show change or transformation, or an inevitable ending, which of course this kind of does. But to me, it shows it's more about the process, at least the way it's written in the guidebook, it feels like it's more about the process of getting through something. And I would almost see this as more of a Wheel of Fortune kind of event, or, you know, where something happens and you can't control that thing, but you can control how you move through it, how you handle it. That kind of is what that would make me think of. So there was a couple little things like that. That being said, there was also a couple cards that really, I think, did such a beautiful job. So here's an example of the Nine of Swords. And we have this nightmare siren down here, and this person up here is obviously freaking out a bit. But there's also this thing, well, like, you could move. Like, you could pick up your tent, you could move a little bit away, and you'd feel calmer. Like, she's not coming out of the water. Like, you're fine. But, you know, you're kind of staying in the situation anyways. Here we have the devil, and I love this depiction. We see this mer person or mer girl, mer woman, who is staring at all of these, like, treasures and trinkets, and not realizing that her cage is actually unlocked. So you can see up close, the padlock is right there, totally unlocked. So some of these cards, I really enjoy this Three of Pentacles, this idea of collaboration that I see here. There's so many that I love. I love the Hermit. I love how he's kind of like this octopus. Sorry, you can hear the puppies. They're kind of getting excited in the background. Favorite card in the entire deck is this Lover's card. Now, if you saw my chakra and tarot-inspired chakra meditation, which I will link in the cards up there, the heart chakra spot that we visit in that guided meditation was completely inspired by this card. And the idea of moving into a space that was inspired by the Lovers, but specifically this idea of looking at one's self in the mirror and connecting with one's self. Now, this message actually goes a little bit deeper because it talks about different aspects of yourself, or sometimes perhaps even self-comparison and like what your idealized version of yourself is versus your actual self, that sort of thing. Might be summarizing that badly, but that's what I took from it. Love this depiction of the Lovers. I think that's really powerful and special. And there's a few other ones in here that I just thought were so good. Like, I love this this King of Swords with this stream of what looks like air or water coming out of his mouth. This really communicates to me the idea of somebody who is an excellent speaker and communicator. I really, really enjoy that. I really enjoy the wonder I can see in this Page of Wands. Like, there's so much that's good here. I love this Nine of Wands, sort of guarding and protecting. So I really feel like this does a wonderful job 99% of the time. And where it doesn't, it's personal taste, right? Like where I would like something different, that's personal taste stuff. I think that this deck, based on my experience with the guidebook and the cards themselves, would make an excellent beginner deck. I think this is a wonderfully accessible deck. I think the artwork is really entrancing and magical and really pulls you in. And I think that if you're new to decks that are outside of like a traditional system, this could really be one that could just light you up and get you excited to read with the tarot. So I'm always really kind of keeping an eye out for decks that I encounter or work with that are so beginner friendly. And this is definitely one of those. I love this Temperance card. So yes, I love this Ace of Wands. It just jumps out of the deck, like at me color-wise. The art is absolutely stunning. In fact, as soon as I got this deck and flipped through it, the first thing I did was look to see if Julie Dillon has illustrated any other decks, and I don't remember seeing any others. If you know of any that she's either working on or has done, comment down below and let me know, because I will definitely check them out. I really enjoy her art style and her way of illustrating the images. I think her art is absolutely stunning, and her use of color is good, and I'm not even remotely artistic. But I just think she did beautiful art in these cards. So I think they're total eye candy. This is another one I just love, this Five of Cups with the Selkie. So yeah, really enjoyed working with that. So pleased to have it in my collection. And yeah. Once I'd read the guidebook, I will say I didn't feel like I wanted or needed to refer back to it a whole lot. And I think that's probably a sign of a well-done guidebook. It got the message across. I didn't feel like I needed to rely on it. So there's that. Let's talk about the Oracle deck I have been working with this week, which is the Hedgewitch Botanical Oracle. Now, this is by Siolo Thompson, and this is the artist and creator of the Line Strider Tarot, which I do not have. That deck didn't really specifically appeal to me as a tarot deck. But what I heard about this Botanical Oracle deck is that it's extremely informative, and that the drawings, which this is also a full color guidebook, I'm kind of loving that Llewellyn is doing cards these ways and this way. It's been a long weekend, y'all. I'm kind of excited that they're doing them this way with the full color guidebooks and the really beautiful borderless cards and all of that stuff. Now, I wanted to have a good botanical deck to reach for, to start to get to know more plants and plant medicines and plant energies, because I've been really called to work with those lately. I really wanted this more to enrich and deepen my magical practice than I did my oracle practice, if that makes sense. So I did get this deck intending to reach for it as a resource to pull in plant medicines when I maybe don't have a particular herb or plant, but I want to pull in those energies. But this week I did use it as an oracle deck. I did not read the book cover to cover, but I did read a good amount of it. I read all of the intro and I read quite a few of these entries. And I do find that the entries are fairly lengthy because they cover information about the plant, like what it is about this plant that you need to know to work with this energy. And it also really speaks to plant medicine in the sense that, you know, you hear if a plant is edible or not, like how it's been used maybe medicinally in folk medicine, that sort of thing. But it's very careful with the information to make sure you know if something is poisonous or not, that sort of thing. So really, really appreciate that. There's even a couple recipes in here for a beverage. There's just some really interesting information. And what I really thought was cool about this, if you are a tarot deck reader, is that for every single plant, she tells you what tarot card this particular plant energy or oracle energy relates to. So for example, let's look at Dogwood Defend. And she'll literally say, yes, the Five of Wands comes to mind immediately in relation to this card. And the key word is defend. And she'll explain why she associates this card with the Five of Wands energy. Now, I appreciated having that as a reference point because, of course, I know tarot really well. So then adding that layer to this just helped me to relate better to these cards. Artwork style and actual card style. These have the exact same card stock as all the new Llewellyn stuff does. So it's pretty glossy looking, borderless, and that kind of, it's not too thin, it's nice card stock, shuffles beautifully, feels like it'll hold up well. And the artwork has the name of the plant, it has the keyword in the largest letters, and then it has the botanical name and the name of the plant. So this one is Enjoy, and it's Strawberry Fragaria vesca. I asked last weekend what those were called, those technical names, and it was like somebody said, oh, it's called the botanical name. Of course it is. Makes perfect sense. So we have Tenacity for burdock, Foxglove for connection, and I did find that these meanings made perfect sense when you read about the plant and like what its job is, like what it's good at, if that makes any sense, or how it grows. And I think that the artwork is really inspired by botanical drawings and wanting to really show an accurate leaf shape or flower shape or color. And I also found that most of these plants I've seen in the wild, and I wonder if that's partly because the author herself is from the Seattle area, which is where I grew up. Hi, Sheila. Puppy just joined me. She's from the Seattle area, so I suspect that most of these plants are going to be Northern Hemisphere, and probably most of them are easy to spot in like the western part of the United States, possibly even more in that Pacific Northwest region. But there are a couple in here that I've never seen out in the wild. So she might have pulled from other geographic areas as well. But I would say most of these I'm familiar with locally. Now, I appreciate that because, of course, I want to connect with more of my local plant life and plant medicines. So I really appreciate that about this deck. But if you're in a different part of the world, you might find that somewhat limiting. So I would say definitely do your homework and see what kind of plants are included and if these plants are going to resonate with you personally. So really appreciate this. Again, I'm using this more of a reference, but I wanted to see how it played as an oracle, and it did read beautifully as an oracle. The keywords are great. There's some shadow and some light in the sense that there's words like defend and patience, courage. So it's not just like, it's not like an affirmation deck. It does have some divination type meanings. So I really, really appreciate that about it. But it was really fun to work with. I will say this particular art style feels a little minimalist for my personal taste. So, but again, that's not why I got it. So I'm completely fine with that. So for now, I'm keeping this with another botanical deck that I have in this really cute little zipper pouch Peggy made me, because it has these bottles with like little bits of herb and plant in them. And I keep this with my Master Book of Herbalism and my other herbal reference guides. So I really enjoyed working with it as an oracle, but I think probably I'll still use it mostly for reference or for magical stuff. The reading cloth you would have seen behind my Instagram posts of late is this lovely one. So I've had it crunched up into that zipper bag I just showed you, but So it has a couple creases in it, but it looks kind of like this flat sort of stone on this side. And then this side is more like this whitewashed kind of wood look to it, which I really think is neat. And I like having a lighter reading cloth because a lot of my reading cloths are a little bit on the darker side. And it just really looked beautiful behind my cards. I mostly used this rock side. I just thought it looked so nice underneath all of my cards. So I really enjoyed working with that. I'm almost sad to put it away because it was so good. It looked so pretty beneath my cards. So let's talk about what I'm going to be working with this coming week. So I'll show you the reading cloth first since I'm talking about that. And it is this bright, colorful one. You've seen it before. It is one of my favorites. This is one of Peggy's original ones. It is backed on a backed with a velvety cloth. These velvety cloths make for, backings make for just a slightly fuzzier or kind of a rolly edge. But I just love the little velvety look, and I love all the bright colors. And you'll see why I want all those bright colors when I show you what I'm working with. Deep breath. Definitely don't watch me on like speed up unless you want to get a good giggle. So, the tarot deck I'm working with this week is the Alice Tarot by Baba Studio. Now, I have to tell you, the reason you see all these stickies, the moment this book was in my hands, and by the way, it smells absolutely glorious. It smells so good. It's a full color guidebook, but as soon as this guidebook was in my hands, I started reading it. And that was last week when I was working with other tarot decks, but the guidebook is so well done. So for starters, again, full color. There is so much information in here. It will blow your mind. Well, it blew my mind. There is almost 300 pages. It's not very thick, but the paper's fairly thin in this, like in a nice way. It's like that thin kind of smooth paper you get with full color guidebooks. But there's like 284 pages of text, not including the bibliography, in this book. And one of the first things I noticed that got me very excited, and I haven't read this section yet, but I will be this week, is the last 65 pages or so is abridged versions. So they've removed some text, but they haven't changed any text, but abridged versions of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. And thumbnail images in full color throughout those stories for where the tarot cards fit in the story, so that you have a contextual reference for all the images that you see. I was like, how brilliant. First of all, I reread the Alice in Wonderland books over the winter time to kind of prepare for this deck coming out, but to be able to reread it in an abridged version with the thumbnails, it just is so smart. It's so smart. In the beginning, there are also some really unique spreads. So I have the orange tab in the back is that abridged copy of the stories. The post-it I have here in the front is because there are some really wonderful looking unique spreads to play with this deck there. And then I'm using my art card by Baba Studio to mark how far into the book I've read. I'm actually more than halfway through. I've read all of the cup suit, all of the majors, and all of the wands. So I only have the swords and the swords and the pentacles left. Yes? Or swords and wands? Yeah, swords and pentacles, or the coins in this deck. Swords and coins left, and then the court cards. And then I have read this whole thing through. And another thing I have to point out about the book, and I know it's like, I haven't even worked with this deck, so I'm kind of reviewing the book already, which is probably a little premature, but that's okay. One thing I noticed is that there is sort of your main meaning, there is standard Rider-Waite-Smith kind of interpretations, and then there's some additional key phrases or keywords that relate specifically to the Alice version of this card, to give you that sort of other layer to play with if you want to. You could just read it Rider-Waite-Smith, I think, but we'll see how that plays throughout the week. And then there's a detailed description of how this card relates to the meaning, and then there's an area where you get deeper into sort of some Alice trivia, Alice information about the author, about Lewis Carroll, or actual Charles Dodgson was his real name. There's a ton of information in here. There's behind the scenes pictures of different photos. Like, look at this. Behind the scenes like pictures showing you how they set up different photos. It's full of information. It's probably the guidebook I've been the most excited about in a really long time, and it's just made me so excited to work with the deck. Enough about the guidebook. I'm going to show you the cards. They come in a beautiful clamshell I said that funny. Clamshell box. I never really knew about this deck until well after it was out of print. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get excited about it because I'm never going to get it. And then they went to reprint it. The camera does not do this deck justice. I'll tell you that right now. You can maybe see some of the cold stamping. There's little foil accents, but they're very mild. And I really like that. They don't distract you from the image. The way that the images all seem to pop out of the frame, out of the border, really gives you this impression of being almost magically pulled into this world. I can't wait. I can't wait to work with this for an entire week and tell you how much I'm loving it, because I'm already falling really hard for this deck, which was not... I expected to enjoy this deck, but not to flip out over this deck. And I'm kind of flipping out a little bit. I think it's just wonderful. All the shiny, like even the backs have that like wonderful like metallic, glowy, shiny prettiness. Look at the way it catches the light. This deck is really, really doing something for me. And I will also say, not having been a hardcore, die-hard Alice in Wonderland fan, and having only read the books for the first time this past winter, I think I said I reread them, but it was the first time. As soon as I started flipping through these images, I was able to remember the scenes that I'd read in the books and exactly what scene that this was depicting on first flip through in most cases. And for me, that's really substantial information, because it means that they've actually done such a wonderful job of capturing the way that the scenes were described in the book that it was instantly recognizable, even to somebody who doesn't know the books really, really well. And I think that's really saying something. I was like, oh yeah, this is that scene, or oh yeah, that's when that happened. And oh man, you guys, I just can't wait. Cannot wait to play with this. I almost didn't even want to pick an Oracle deck to play with as well, because I don't want anything to distract me. Now here's the fun thing I get to show you. About 6 months ago, maybe a little less, Peggy found a little teeny piece of fabric, enough to make one bag, and I'm so sorry. There's no more of this, but we might find this again in the future, I don't know. But I knew I'd already pre-ordered this deck, so I guess it would have had to have been shortly around that October time frame, maybe November. And I set it aside so that I would have it when this Alice Tarot came out. It just, look, it's like Alice and the Cheshire Cat and the teapot and the tarts. Oh, that's a mushroom, not a tart, but the little cards, and just, oh my gosh, look, it's so cute. And it fits like my deck in my box perfectly, and I was just like, it's so perfect. I'm so pleased, so pleased. So there's that too. Oh my gosh, this video is getting long, and I thought it was going to be a short one. Okay, last thing to show you, the Oracle deck I decided to work with this week alongside it is one I've worked with before. It's an old favorite, the Enchanted Map by Colette Baron-Reid, and it is illustrated by Jena Dellagrottaglia. I just thought this one would play nicely next to Alice, and also not distract me. There's no guidebook I need to read cover to cover. I'm already fairly familiar, and it's got enough surrealness to it, and it is still a photo manipulated art that I felt like it wouldn't be too distracting from the Alice artwork. So yes, this is the Oracle deck that I will be working with, and I will share my thoughts on it, you know, coming at it from where I'm at in my tarot and Oracle practice today when I do my review next weekend. So this is what the backs look like. There is a book that was, this deck was originally a companion deck to a book called The Map. That was it written by Colette Baron-Reid? Oh, I'm not sure. I never read the book that this was originally based on, but the guidebook is very meaty. I do remember that from before, and has lots of good information, upright and reverse meanings if you choose to work with those. So yes, I will be working with this beside my Alice Tarot, but I'm mostly excited to work with the Alice Tarot. So there's that. All right, I'm going to cut this short before I actually pass the 30-minute mark. And if you've hung out with me this long, thank you so, so much. I hope you have a beautiful afternoon, day, or evening, wherever you might be in the world, and I will talk to you all very soon.